Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. Tonight we are stepping into a strange what-if, the universe where gravity, the quiet pull that holds everything in place, suddenly lets go. Before we start, I would love to know where you are listening from, maybe curled up in bed, sitting by a window, or drifting off somewhere far across the globe. It is always amazing to think of this small group of curious minds spread out across our turning planet. If you enjoy these calm late-night journeys, please give the video a like and subscribe. It really helps me keep creating these little travels for you. And for those who are already part of this channel, thank you for being here. You are a piece of peace in this noisy universe. Now I will try to keep this soothing, but a little warning. I hope it does not keep you awake. Still, if it does, you will fall asleep with something new learned, and that is not a bad way to lose a little rest. So what would really happen if one of the most important forces simply stopped? Gravity. It is everywhere, always pulling, always working. It keeps the oceans tied to Earth, holds the moon in place, and keeps the planets in orbit. It is so steady that we almost never notice it, until in this thought experiment it vanishes. In the next, while we will calmly step through this impossible idea, starting with the smallest things, your teacup floating off the table, and ending with consequences reaching across galaxies and ages of time. We will look at the science, the wonder, and the strange poetry of a universe without gravity, moving slowly from what you know to the farthest edges of space. We will see what happens in your room, your street, the oceans, the air, the moon, the sun, and even the shape of the universe itself. Along the way there will be humor, quiet reflection, and plenty of space to just imagine. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let us see what happens when the force that ties everything together lets go. You are sitting with a warm cup of tea, a book open on your lap, the hush of evening filling the room. Steam curls with slow grace, almost like it is dancing. Then without warning or sound the familiar pull beneath everything loosens. It is not a shock, not a jump, more like a secret slipping free. Your body feels light, not because you weigh less but because the pull that gave you weight is gone. The first feeling is gentle. Your chair had been pressed down under you. Springs holding back. Now they relax and give you the softest push upward. You are no longer tied down. So even that tiny push makes you drift, first a few centimeters, then more, like a leaf that forgot how to land. Your stomach does not lurch. You do not feel the flutter of an elevator, because that comes from changing speed. Here there is no acceleration. You are simply coasting. Across the room the book you left face down slowly rises as the table relaxes. It turns and floats with quiet dignity into the still air. Not everything moves right away. Things with no pressure stored inside wait. A pen stays until a draft from the heater pushes it. A paperclip shifts when the surface flexes. Tiny causes, big effects. That is the rule of a world without weight. Your tea becomes a wonder. Without gravity the liquid gathers into a rounded bead above the rim, a shimmering globe with steam stitched around it. Droplets that once would fall now hover as small clear spheres near your hand. You move a finger and one sticks, wobbling. Like jelly, cool at first, then warm, heat still moves even if up and down are gone. Listen closely, the room itself sounds new when nothing has weight, footsteps make no thud, chairs do not scrape, floors no longer creak, freed from holding all day. Instead there is a soft hush, one that makes you notice little things, the breath of air from a vent, the low hum of a fan slowing down, the faint hiss of your own breath. The air itself slows because the swirls and eddies inside a room are made by warm air rising and cool air sinking. Without gravity, warm and cool no longer know which way to move, so convection stops and the atmosphere grows still. You try to stand, but the word stand suddenly feels outdated. You press your hands against the arms of the chair expecting the usual pushback. Instead you and the chair drift apart. The chair moves one way. You move the other, both following the quiet rule the universe always kept. If nothing pushes or pulls a thing, it keeps doing what it was already doing. This is inertia, the most simple and stubborn truth in physics. You are now like a small spaceship. Every tiny move becomes a thruster firing. Press a fingertip against the wall and you sail off with a grace you never had in gym class. The difference between mass and weight shows itself in the clearest way. Your mass is the same as before, so you still resist being sped up or slowed down. You are not weak, you are just no longer pinned. Try to stop by grabbing a cushion and you both keep drifting together like partners in a slow dance. Pull a curtain cord and you and the cord float in gentle disagreement, neither quick to stop. Weight depended on gravity, mass belongs to you no matter what. Shelves relax. Wood once bent under load sighs and pushes books into motion. A thin paperback slides out, turns like an autumn leaf, and taps another book. They couple gently and drift as one. Nothing smashes into a ceiling, because there is no up. There is only the way things move when supports release them. Air drag still works so nothing races away. The room is now like an aquarium, every object a calm fish. Your body feels quiet confusion you notice only after a while. Deep in your inner ears are tiny stones called otoliths. Usually they tell you which way is down. Now with no pull they give a fuzzy signal. Balance depends on eyes, ears, and the soft tug under your feet. With one part missing, your head feels light and unsure. Then your eyes take charge and you adjust. Humans adapt quickly when change is slow and gentle. Look at the curtains. Before, warm air from the radiator would rise and sink, waving the cloth. Now the flow stops and the fabric rests. Dust that once danced in endless acrobatics hangs until you brush past and stir it. A wave of your hand makes a breeze that does not fall away because there is no weight to make air sink. It spreads thin and becomes the new stillness. On the table a pencil begins to wander. It had been stuck in a shallow groove worn into the wood by years of writing. Now as the surface relaxes, the pencil eases free. It slides, rolls, and with the lightest touch kisses the rim of the teacup before drifting onward on a path of its own. You reach for it and the motion sends you floating back. Here catching is not grabbing but a slow conversation. You push a toe on the wall to stop yourself, learning by feel what equations would already explain. Curiosity invites a test. You float a heavy hardback beside a crumpled tissue. Without gravity neither falls. The only difference is how air treats them. The tissue meets more air and slows fast. The hardback moves farther before the air hushes it to stillness. In the old world people said heavier things fall faster. That was a myth born of gravity and air drag mixed together. Untangle them and the truth is clear. Another test. You pour a little tea into the room. It does not pour. It gathers into a round drop that trembles and drifts. You bring the cup near and the drop stretches like syrup then slides back into the rim. Surface tension becomes the tea's best friend, a thin skin that holds it together, and without buoyancy, which needed gravity, light things no longer float and heavy things no longer sink. There is only cohesion, adhesion, and the gentle pushes you give. A picture frame on the wall creaks and shifts. It had been hanging on a nail that only made sense with the downward pull. Now the soft flex of the wall and the slight tension of the wire offer a new path. The frame eases forward, turning like a door that forgot where the floor is. You stop it with a fingertip and it accepts. Even the nail, freed from its weight, slides out just a little as the wallboard relaxes, then waits. Patiently, you feel inertia most clearly when you try to stop in front of the bookshelf. Before you would plant your feet and lean. Here there are no planted feet. You touch the shelf and the touch becomes a bargain. You push a little, the shelf pushes back the same, and both of you drift apart, slower and slower as air smooths the sharp edges of motion. Every action still has an equal and opposite reaction. It is only clearer now that the ground is not keeping the score. It might look like chaos, but it is not. It is a softer order. Every shift has a story, a spring loosening, a fan winding down, a hand brushing, a breath let out. Without gravity things do not know how to fall, but they still know how to continue. Motion lasts until something changes it. Rest lasts until something nudges it. The rules were always there. Now we are noticing. You turn your head and the room looks like a slow-turning mobile in a nursery. The clock hand still sweeps because inside small forces move. Gears along, a scarf curls in the air like a lazy comet. Your hair, freed from the duty of down, spreads around your face in a halo you could never plan. It is lovely and a little funny, and it feels more natural the longer you stay here. You press your palms together and your body answers with the softest recoil. You drift toward the window at a pace too gentle to startle a moth. Outside, leaves freed from branches hover at different heights. Some cling by tiny resin threads and stay, others wander like paper boats on still water. A bird that had perched now hangs where it leapt, wings pushing air that no longer lifts the old way. Instead it learns momentum, inventing new moves in an instant. Everything feels lighter because weight is gone, but nothing is meaningless. The hidden frame that once held life has faded, leaving behind the simple frame of motion. You float not because of water or air but because nothing pins you anymore. The room teaches kindly, every drift, every glide. Every object finding its path is a small show of how the universe behaves when one of its great pulls is turned off. You breathe slowly and let yourself float. The cup, the book, the dust, the pencil, the curtain, your heartbeat, all follow the same plain rules. Without the press of weight, the tiniest push matters. A breath sends a droplet spinning, a toe on a wall redraws your line. Inertia is not a thought here. It is the soft language of a room that forgot how to fall and learned how to coast. Across town, the first minutes without gravity feel like a quiet dream. Inside a cafe, a spoon in a mug drifts off on its own path. A customer reaches for it and instead drifts into the next table. Their surprised laugh meets the same puzzled calm on every other face. Half what just happened and half this is fine. Chairs lift a few centimeters, releasing the sigh of their cushions. The clink of cups is replaced by the soft shuffle of objects through still air. In a living room a child squeals with joy as toys float upward, not racing away but rising with the grace of bubbles and syrup. A cat less amused leaps at the couch and misses. Its paws paddle at nothing. It drifts past the coffee table, eyes wide, tail flicking in doubt. The moment is so quiet you can hear the faint brush of its fur sliding against a lamp. Outdoors everything feels stranger. People sitting on park benches are nudged slowly upward as the wood beneath them springs back like a mattress freed from years of weight. A man walking his dog looks up in confusion when the leash curls lazily above his head. The dog itself bounces once then drifts into a soft float with no clear direction. Grass blades do not bend under steps. They only sway with faint movements of the air. Balloons once tugging at small hands now wander without aim, their strings looping in random shapes. The confusion is mixed with wonder. In a train station a woman lets go of her bag to fix her scarf. Instead of dropping it waits politely in front of her as if asking permission to follow. Commuters known for ignoring one another cannot help but glance around, eyes shifting between floating bags, drifting hats, and coins hanging in midair. On the platform a vending machine snacks slide out of their coils. In a moving train the scene turns oddly calm. Wheels no longer press on the rails the same way, but momentum keeps the train gliding just above the track. Drinks form trembling domes above cups, newspapers and jackets lift away from laps. One man pokes the air to chase a pen that refuses to rest. Voices stay low, not scared, only unsure. Above the ground people on planes know about floating but the cabin feels different. The tug of the seatbelt is gone. Small things that once rolled under seats now orbit slowly around passengers. Flight attendants trade looks, seasoned by turbulence and delays but not by this. The plane keeps moving forward yet inside everything behaves like space. Coffee poured with skill gathers into a golden bead before sliding into a cup. In supermarkets, aisles turn into playgrounds. Carts freed from the floor glide gently along their last path, bumping displays or passing shoppers. A loaf of bread drifts past the freezer aisle, gathering a small audience. A tin of beans tips from its shelf, not to crash but to wobble slowly toward the bakery. Jars of jam turn in the light above. The store becomes part lesson, part theater, all in slow motion. Curiosity rises like the objects themselves. People test the rules, letting phones hover, pushing off walls to move without steps. Some laugh, some frown in thought, some only watch. Alarm is hard to feel when everything moves so softly without falls or crashes. Children accept it at once as if it were always so. Adults take longer, carrying years of habit with them. Yet one thought begins to surface. We never noticed gravity until it left. It was the silent background, an unseen deal with the ground. Coffee stayed in cups, keys waited in pockets. Every step was a tug of muscles against a planet. We forgot it the way we forget the hum of a fridge until it stops and the silence feels loud. This absence removes not just weight but an assumption so deep it felt like part of reality. In its place is a new stage, calm and drifting, where motion does not stop just because it should, where nothing knows where to settle, and every move writes a fresh quiet equation in the air. In those first minutes confusion softens into wonder, and wonder opens the door to questions, questions no one thought to ask when gravity was the most reliable thing in the universe. The first place you notice the change most deeply is at home, because here you know exactly how everything is meant to behave. A packet of cookies that was resting on the counter drifts away, not falling, but sliding into the air like it suddenly wants to see the rest of the kitchen. On the bookshelf, novels rise from their neat lines, one by one breaking free, covers slowly turning as if they are showing themselves off. A plant in its pot floats just above its spot, leaves spread like sails, with tiny bits of dry soil escaping and circling like little brown moons. The air feels strange, not lighter, but still, because the usual warm air rising and cool air sinking has stopped. Dust that once swirled in invisible currents now hangs frozen until a breath or a passing elbow sets it drifting. Everything seems patient. A cushion you tap with your foot keeps gliding gently until it meets a wall. In this weightless world, motion changes only when something pushes or pulls. A truth that has always existed, but never so clear. Your pets quickly become the main actors. A dog, puzzled but determined, kicks its legs like it is swimming, finding it only works if there is something solid to push against. A cat, usually full of grace, tumbles in slow motion, twisting midair to land on feet it no longer needs. Both wear the same confused look, as if the rule book they trusted has been thrown away. They too are experimenting, learning how to move in a place with no natural down. Daily habits rewrite themselves without warning. You open a cupboard and the push sends you backward while the door drifts the other way, the two of you parting like strangers in a narrow hall. Setting down a cup no longer means resting it on a surface. Without a push in the other direction, it simply floats off. To stop yourself, you grab something solid, only to send that object gliding too. In zero gravity, every force works both ways. Push on the table, you drift one way, and the table drifts the other. Even small actions turn into careful exchanges between you and everything around you. Astronauts know this well. In orbit, they rely on handles, footholds, straps, and Velcro to stay put while they work. The space station is built with these in mind, with cords, clips, and grips everywhere, because without them, life becomes a chain of slow collisions, each one sending you off in a new direction. Eating becomes a game of patience. Without weight, liquids turn into floating spheres held together by surface tension. You cannot pour tea into a cup, you have to guide the trembling blob carefully, and if you miss, it drifts away, waiting for someone to bump it. Solid food is no easier. Bite a cookie and crumbs scatter into space, refusing to fall, floating instead like tiny edible asteroids until someone waves them aside. Storage turns into survival. In a home without gravity, anything left loose will wander. The plant floating in the corner may drift into a light. The remote that slipped away could vanish behind a curtain and return hours later like it has been on an adventure. Astronauts avoid this chaos with sealed bags, clips, and pockets, and you would need the same, not because things crash, but because they disappear into slow migrations. Your body begins to change too. Standing and walking are gone. You are always gliding unless anchored to something. Your legs, freed from the job of holding you up, relax in ways they never could, while your arms do the work of pulling and steering. Astronauts know this shift well. Their legs weaken without use, while their arms and shoulders grow stronger from constant pulling. Without gravity, even bones thin unless trained against another force. The sounds in the house change. No footsteps, no objects thumping to the floor, only quiet. The creak of stairs is gone. Cupboards no longer slam, they meet the frame softly and drift shut. Life slows down. Every movement is more careful, more connected to the objects around you. You begin to see how much gravity once tidied up your life, ending things the moment you let them go, keeping you steady without asking. And yet, there is a strange beauty. The packet of cookies that floated off earlier now spins lazily near the ceiling, glowing in the light as though it has been placed on display. The plant, knocked free from its pot, spreads its roots like a delicate fan. The air is crowded with little drifting worlds, a crumb, a drop of tea, a hairbrush. Each one follows its own path, moving only when something brushes against it. It shows that stillness was never real, it was always gravity's trick. Without it, you can see that everything is always in motion, just slowly enough to notice. Life at home turns into a calm dance. You learn how to push and how to hold on. Doors are no longer just doorways, they are anchors. You don't grab floating things, you match their movement and then close your hand. Even your pets start to change. The cat learns to kick off walls with perfect timing. The dog figures out how to chase a drifting toy. What started as confusion becomes play, and the house itself turns into a small space station, where every step is shared between you and the objects around you. The streets are no longer familiar. The line between road and sky has melted into a dreamlike haze. Cars hover a few inches above the road, gliding in the last direction they were pushed. With no weight pressing tires down, friction has disappeared. A driver rolling toward a crossing keeps sliding past it, their steering wheel turning uselessly. The car follows the laws of motion, not traffic lights, drifting until it hits something soft enough to stop it. Bicycles float like odd sculptures. Riders slip sideways off their seats, pedals spinning freely under shoes with no weight to push them down. Some push at the air to keep moving, though it hardly helps. Others give up steering, drifting with their bikes, tied to them more by habit than need. The sky fills with smaller things. Empty bags and coffee cups float upward in slow spirals. Street signs shiver as the poles holding them relax, some breaking free and turning gently. Newspapers flap once before curling into lazy spins. Leaves, stones, even gloves gather in flocks, drifting together wherever the air sends them. It looks beautiful, but there is danger too. A half-full soda can float at head height, liquid sloshing inside like a slow drum. It seems harmless until someone bumps it, sending it off on a long path. A sharp object is worse. A glass bottle doesn't fall and break, it drifts in a stubborn straight line until it meets a wall, a window, or someone's body. Bigger things act the same. A delivery van, left behind in panic, drifts into an intersection. It doesn't smash, it just bumps and rebounds, sliding away, its side mirror drawing a curve in the air. It still weighs the same, it is just no longer tied down. Once moving, it takes forever to stop. The rules of physics are not new, but without gravity, they reveal themselves clearly. People adapt quickly. Some grip lamp posts and railings, using them as anchors while the street rearranges itself. Others push off cars or shop walls, testing how much effort it takes to move or stop. A group of kids turn it into a game, launching themselves from a bus shelter and gliding to the other side of the street, laughing as they fly through the quiet air. The city itself has a new voice. Engines are silent, replaced by the soft tap of metal brushing metal. The air feels padded, because no vibration rises from the ground. Even pigeons are unsettled, spinning in circles as the updrafts vanish. Yet they adjust faster than humans, steering with sharp wing flicks past floating trash bags. Shop displays start to undo themselves, light objects slipping free and drifting just beyond reach. A mannequin from a store leans forward, no longer held to the floor by weight. It drifts and turns slowly, a quiet spinning guard now facing the wrong direction. People walk around it, not because it is dangerous, but because in this strange world, anything moving toward you deserves room until you know what it will do. In wide open spaces the drifting grows bigger, a shopping cart rolls for meters. Wheels spinning in the air until it taps a bus stop sign, the two of them slide together like old companions. A row of chained bikes lifts as one, the rack sliding free and drifting like a slow parade. Sometimes the scene turns funny. A man chasing his hat only pushes himself farther away with every grab. A skateboard kicked in anger drifts off at a steady pace, ignoring the boy calling after it. A small dog breaks free of its harness, wagging its tail as it floats happily down the street until a stranger gently redirects it back to its owner. The dreamlike quality is matched by a truth. Here movement has no natural ending. Once an item slips free it will not land but continue until it touches something else, minutes or even hours later. Predicting where things go matters more, not because they hit hard, but because they do not stop before reaching you. The wind now acts like a visible hand. Gusts that once just shook clothes now push cups, papers, and tools into small groups, turning corners together like a loose parade, without gravity pressing everything down the line. Between ground and air feels thinner, more uncertain. Looking down an avenue the view is unreal. Cars and bikes hover like toys in a snow globe, moving slow and aimless. Papers swirl above shop roofs catching sunlight before sliding back into shadow. The curbs and painted lines remain, but they look like relics of rules that no longer matter. Instead there is quiet strangeness. Motion still writes its story, only now slow enough to watch. At the coast the old border between land and water fades. The shoreline that once moved with tides and waves begins to blur. Without gravity holding it down the sea hesitates, then rises gently, not a crash or a drain, but a soft loosening, like silk pulled from the earth. Where waves once broke in foam their peaks lift and pause, perfect arcs before the trough rises to meet them, folding into round swelling shapes. These shapes grow as they pull in more water. not flattening back but forming glowing spheres that hover above the place the ocean used to be. From the sand the sight is unreal. A swell lifts, but instead of breaking it swells upward. Sunlight scatters inside it, glittering like a jewel. Drops slide off, but instead of falling they collect into smaller spheres trailing like beads, drifting for meters before the air slows them, each path as wild as a dandelion seed. Now surface tension rules the water. Once gravity forced the sea flat. Now only the pull between molecules shapes it, and that pull draws it into spheres, the same rule that makes raindrops round, but here working on a massive scale. The first giant sphere near the beach is the size of a hill, turning slowly, glowing in the air, its movement inside both strange and beautiful. Currents keep moving for a while, momentum from the last winds and tides twisting inside, sand and tiny shells drifting like they are in a giant aquarium. Fish circle slowly, still swimming out of habit, though up and down mean nothing now. Beyond the first huge floating shapes the rest of the ocean starts to copy. The flat horizon bulges in spots as the surface pulls upward. Small globes break free and rise above the sea. Sunlight flashing off them before the breeze carries them sideways. The sound of the shore changes too. The roar of waves is gone, replaced by soft sloshes as water spheres touch and merge, each collision slow and gentle, ending with a bigger, rounder mass. Walking where the sea once reached feels unreal. The sand is damp but no longer kissed by waves. Puddles fill the hollows, but even they are rounding off, lifting edges into domes. Crabs scurry in confusion, their border gone in minutes. Seaweed floats just above the sand, swaying only when a current brushes past. Farther out the giant spheres begin to lift, leaving the rest behind. They rise slowly since water is massive even without weight. Some hang close, held by thin tethers of water stretching until they snap, the snapped piece sliding back into the parent with ripples racing across its skin. Some globes are clear, bending houses, cliffs, and clouds into strange patterns. Others cloudy with sand and plants looking like giant marbles in the sky. Sunlight catches them at sharp angles, bursting into rainbows, reminding that water is always bending light. Inside the spheres sea creatures adjust to their new world. Schools of fish loop without direction. Some hover with tiny fin flicks to avoid bumping the walls. Dolphins and seals move with more power, but even their leaps stretch into slow drifting arcs. On a larger scale the earth itself changes. Coastlines dissolve as bays and inlets rise into the air. Rivers stop flowing downhill and gather into chains of rounded bodies floating above. Land like beads, the whole scene carries an eerie calm, no crashing surf, no tide, yet more motion than ever. Giant spheres drift patiently, changing place over minutes or hours. When two meet their skins warp then snap back, merging into something larger. Standing on the old shoreline you would see a quilt of hovering oceans, each one a separate world, each moving on its own time. The sky seems nearer, mirrored and bent in every surface. blues and whites shifting like broken glass. Sometimes a small sphere slips away, wandering inland, rolling silent through streets or fields guided only by the thinnest wind. This floating ocean follows the same rules as a drop of liquid in space. Astronauts watch it on the station when juice or tea forms a trembling globe in the air, surface tension alone holding it together. Here on Earth the same balance rules, molecules pulling on each other without gravity's pull below. The ocean is still the ocean, same smell, same color, same clarity, but now it moves in ways no one has ever seen. It no longer belongs to the shore, no longer shaped by the basins that once held it. Instead it floats free, bound only to itself, a chain of drifting liquid worlds moving in slow, graceful paths through the air, each one carrying traces of the old ocean, sand, fish, currents, yet their new form belongs to a place where down does not exist, and the sea has finally risen to the sky. The air has always been the quietest part of our world, so common we ignore it until the wind stirs or storms arrive, yet it is here surrounding us only because gravity has held it close for billions of years. Every breath of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide and more bound by that steady pull. Without it, air would behave just like water without gravity, no longer anchored, it would wander. On a normal day the atmosphere acts like an invisible ocean, pressure at the surface caused by the weight of everything above, thicker near the ground where gravity tugs harder, thinner higher up where the pull grows weak. This gradient, dense below, faint above, is the work of gravity. It is why you breathe without effort at sea level, but the moment that pull vanishes the balance breaks. Air molecules no longer tethered to Earth scatter with their own energy. Molecules of gas are always moving, colliding at hundreds of meters a second. Once held back, now free, they begin to escape in every direction like they would in space. It does not vanish at once. The lowest molecules still collide for a while before drifting far enough to feel the endless openness. But slowly the pressure falls, the air feels thinner, not in storms or gusts, but in a soft decline. Your lungs draw deeper without you noticing, your body adjusts quietly. At first nothing looks wrong, grass bends when you step, trees rustle with faint breezes, clouds still drift, but each is gentler, each weaker. As hours pass the change becomes clear, with fewer air molecules to scatter light the blue of the sky fades. On an ordinary day sunlight scatters blues and violets. Your eyes see more blue so the sky shines bright. Now with thinning air there is less scattering, the blue turns pale. Washed out like fabric left too long in the sun, soon color drains, the sun shines sharper but the sky around it turns steel gray, patches of deep indigo spread, the black of space pushes through, even in daytime stars appear, once hidden, now faint but visible. Sound begins to die, air carries vibration, less air means fewer molecules to carry sound, voices weaken, footsteps dull, the sea grows hushed, waves lose their roar, the world feels muffled, as though even the wind has been told to whisper. Science explains it simply: without gravity the atmosphere escapes, molecules fly at random, some up, some sideways, but once high enough with no pull they keep going. Lighter gases like hydrogen and helium drift away first, heavier ones like nitrogen and oxygen follow more slowly, but all eventually leave. The difference is only time. You might expect weightlessness as the air disappears, but weight does not depend on atmosphere. Instead you feel changes in temperature. Without a thick blanket to hold heat, the sun's warmth is no longer stored or spread. Days grow hotter, shadows chill faster, like the moon, boiling in light, freezing in dark. The swing is sharp, sudden, unrelenting. Birds sense it too, at first still able to beat their wings, but soon their flight falters as the air thins beneath them. But as the air keeps thinning, wings lose their lift. Birds fight harder with every flap until flying becomes impossible. Insects that once ruled the skies lose balance, their wings pushing against nothing. Even dust and pollen behave oddly, drifting slowly because the downward pull is gone, yet never floating the way they once did. The higher you climb, the faster the change. On hills and mountains, where the air was already light, it disappears sooner. People living there feel their breath shorten first. The sunlight feels harsher, because with fewer particles to scatter it, more invisible rays cut straight through. Shadows sharpen, edges turn crisp. Then the blue sky fades away completely. The sun burns bright against a pure black backdrop, a view once reserved for astronauts. Stars shine steadily without the usual twinkle, because twinkling comes from air-bending starlight, and now there is not enough left to bend it. They hang still and sharp, tiny points of light across endless darkness. It is beautiful but unsettling, like the sky's shield has been stripped away and the universe is staring straight down at you. Quiet as it seems, losing the atmosphere is one of the most extreme things that could happen to Earth. Without air, there are no clouds, no rain, no weather. No protection from meteors, no shield against the sun's radiation. No sound, no flight, no breath. The air lingers longest at the ground, stirred by your steps, warmed by the soil, cooled by water, whispering faintly before joining the rest in the void. The last traces fade, and what was once the living sky becomes space itself. The breath in your chest is no longer of Earth but scattered across the stars. Seen from above, the change is clear before it's felt on the ground. Earth has always circled the sun, held in place by gravity's invisible rope. Without that pull, the circle snaps open. Earth doesn't stop moving, it shoots forward in the exact line it was already heading. Nothing pushes it, nothing drags it, it just keeps going straight at over 107,000 km/h. It's like spinning a stone in a sling. Keep the rope tight and it spins in a loop. Let go, and it doesn't spiral, it flies straight forever unless something else changes its path. On Earth, we expect things to slow or fall, but that's only because friction and gravity are always stealing energy. In space, with no pull and no air, movement never fades. Earth's orbit was always a balance between its speed forward and the sun's tug inward. Speed tried to carry it straight, gravity bent it inward, and together they made a perfect curve repeated year after year. Take away the tug, and speed wins. The circle breaks, the planet slips free, sailing in a straight line like a ship leaving harbor for the endless ocean. Earth's spin, though, is different. Gravity doesn't control it, momentum does. So the planet keeps turning, more than 1,600 km/h at the equator. Day and night keep cycling, at least for a time, as Earth glides away. The sun still rises and sets, but now its place in the sky shifts little by little each day. At first the difference is tiny, the sun just slightly off from where you expect it, but over time the change becomes clear and impossible to ignore. It's worth stopping to realize how fast everything already was before gravity disappeared. The feeling of being still was always an illusion. Even when you stood inside your house, you were moving with Earth's spin, rushing around the sun at about 107,000 km/h, and being carried with the sun itself as it raced through the galaxy at nearly 800,000 km/h. We never noticed it because the motion was steady, but now, without the sun's pull, one motion remains while the curve that tied it into a loop is gone. If you could watch the solar system from far away, it would look like a slow explosion. Planets that once circled smoothly now drift away, each in the direction it was heading the moment gravity stopped. Some move nearly side by side, others angle off, but none come back. The pattern of orbits freezes like beads falling from a snapped necklace, each carrying its own path across the black. For Earth, that path leads it away from the light and warmth that made life possible. At first, the change is so small it feels normal. The sun looks the same, its heat barely different. But week by week, the gap grows. The sun shrinks in the sky. The nights stretch colder and longer. With the sun's gravity gone, the moon too loses its circle around Earth. It had been falling toward us constantly, held in place by our pull, but now it flies straight, its path no longer linked with ours except by chance. For a few nights it may appear close, but then it drifts into its own lonely voyage. The reason planets orbit instead of escaping was explained centuries ago by Isaac Newton. He imagined firing a cannonball from a mountain. Shoot it slow and it drops nearby. Shoot it faster and it lands farther away. Shoot it at just the right speed and the ground curves away as fast as it falls, so it circles endlessly. That's orbit. Shoot it faster still and it escapes completely. The instant gravity disappears, every planet's speed becomes escape speed. Every orbit dissolves into a straight line. It's simple. With gravity, motion bends. Without gravity, motion is straight. The shift is small in concept but massive in effect. The seasons, the steady sky, even the meaning of a year vanish. Inertia is what takes over. The same rule that makes a book slide until friction stops it is the one that pushes Earth forward now. But space has no friction at all, so Earth's path continues unchanged for billions of years unless another force interferes. Maybe a passing star, a heavy gas cloud, or the pull of a faraway galaxy, but those are rare events. For human time, Earth is on a straight trip into deep space. There's something almost poetic in this. We thought of Earth as orbiting, faithful to the Sun, circling back forever. Without gravity, that loyalty ends. It's not orbit anymore, it's exile. The Sun shrinks. The constellations twist as our view changes. The repeating cycles that lasted for 4.5 billion years end in a single long journey away. From the ground, though, you wouldn't notice much at first. The sun would rise and set, winds would still blow, stars would still appear. But behind it all, the math is working. The orbit flattening into a line, the gentle tether of gravity gone. The solar system is no longer held together, it's scattering apart. Each world chasing its own silent path. It's a reminder that orbits aren't natural resting places. They are precise balances, dances held by gravity. Without it, the dance is over. What's left is only drifting. Earth keeps spinning on its axis, so days and nights still follow, but our place is different forever. We're not circling home anymore. We're leaving. For all of history, the moon was there above, steady, loyal, and unchanging. Now, even that changes. The moon has always been our quiet companion. It marked months, guided sailors, inspired stories, gave poets words when they had none. It never failed to rise, never skipped a night, never left its place in the sky. And then suddenly, it is gone. The moon was tied to Earth by gravity, forever falling toward us while Earth curved away beneath it. Without that pull, nothing bends its path anymore. It just keeps going in the same direction it was moving the moment gravity disappeared. One heartbeat it glides through its usual orbit, the next it sails into deep space, free and unbothered. From the ground, the change is gentle at first. It doesn't shoot away like a rocket. It drifts, moving at the same speed as before, but without the curve that once circled it around us. To the naked eye it looks like it's still in place, but as hours pass its motion grows strange, no longer matching the stars, like a dancer walking off stage mid-performance. The feeling of loss arrives quickly. For many, the moon was a comfort, steady above the chaos of life. Whole traditions grew around it. Farmers once used it to plan crops, cultures built festivals on its phases, lovers walked beneath its glow believing it watched over them. Without it, the sky feels hollow, colder, missing something both familiar and deeply human. Science feels the loss too. For billions of years, the moon shaped Earth, pulling tides, keeping our tilt steady, holding the seasons in balance. Without it, the ocean's rhythm almost dies, tides shrinking to faint ripples pulled only by the sun. Coastlines built on the heartbeat of tides are suddenly silent. But the first thing we notice is what the eyes see. Night loses its silver lamp. Without moonlight, darkness thickens. For anyone raised under its glow, the shift is shocking. Rural nights become pitch black, twilight falls straight into shadow. A moonlit walk turns into a torch-lit stumble, romance replaced by the cold shine of a flashlight, and no poet can make LED light sound beautiful. Yet the stars gain their chance. With no moon to hide them, more of them blaze into view. The Milky Way stretches brighter than ever, faint constellations appear, the sky becomes a planetarium on a grand scale. Astronomers see both wonder and grief. It is scientifically rich, but culturally painful. In the days after, telescopes track the moon as it fades, still glowing, still scarred with craters, but smaller every night. Slowly it becomes just another wandering body in the galaxy, drifting for millions of years, unlikely to be captured again, carrying its history with Earth as only a story written in stone. Humanity feels the ripple quickly. Flags left behind on its surface are no longer heritage, but artifacts of deep space. The man in the moon disappears from myth, replaced by the silent eyes of stars. Lunar calendars stop, never restarting. Even the word month, born from the moon, becomes a relic of language. And still, there is dignity in its leaving. It does not fall or break. It continues, steady, with the same speed it always had, a silent traveler on its own path. Freed from us, but calm in its motion. A quiet reminder that in space, movement is not about force, but about the endless glide that begins when nothing stands in the way. For storytellers, the moon's leaving becomes the new legend. It is not remembered as a violent fall but as a calm farewell. Generations may tell of the time when the moon and earth separated not because of anger or disaster but because one could no longer hold the other. In its place new symbols may rise, bright planets like Venus or star groups reshaped by the gap of that one steady circle. And for those who stand under the first truly moonless night there comes a moment of truth. The stars look sharper, the dark feels deeper, the air seems larger. The missing moon is not only a change in the sky, it is the loss of a common guide, the silent friend that stayed with humans since before we had words. Life continues, but the heavens will never appear the same again. The pull of the tides had been a steady beat for Earth's coasts for billions of years. Twice every day water rose and fell in a slow dependable rhythm, driven mostly by the moon's gravity with a little help from the sun. It was so steady that people barely thought about it until the moon left. Without its pull, tides flatten into weak bulges shaped only by the sun, barely noticed in most places. For coastal life that loss is like a heart stopping. Countless species had evolved around that watery clock. The intertidal zone, that thin strip of land covered and uncovered each day, becomes something entirely different without the flooding and draining. It had been a stage of struggle where mussels clung to rocks, where barnacles shut tight at low tide, where shorebirds darted in for meals of trapped creatures. Now the line between sea and land freezes. Without the surge of water many animals lose the signs for feeding and breeding. Horseshoe crabs for millions of years had used the higher spring tides to crawl ashore and lay eggs safe above the reach of normal waves. Without lunar tides those high levels never come. The timing fails and whole breeding cycles collapse. Fish that spawn in estuaries also depended on tidal flow. Species like mullet and herring timed their moves with the flood tide riding the water inland to safe bays where young could grow. Without that rise migrations break, small fish stay exposed and fewer survive. Many shellfish and invertebrates depend on tides for food delivery. Clams, oysters, mussels need the push and pull to bring fresh plankton twice daily. Without it water grows stale, food declines, growth slows, and populations fall. Tide pools also suffer. Without renewal of fresh water they become trapped, warmer, and weaker to changes in salt levels. Sea plants decline too. Kelp forests and seagrass beds need tides to stir water and bring nutrients. Without motion fine particles coat their leaves, blocking light and slowing photosynthesis. Habitats shrink and the thousands of animals that depend on them vanish. The loss spreads outward. Shorebirds that hunted on exposed mud at low tide lose their food. Fewer arrive and those that do fight harder. Predators from foxes to hawks suffer. Food webs start breaking all from the moon's absence. Even ocean chemistry changes. Tides mixed surface oxygen with deeper waters. Without that stir oxygen falls, dead zones appear. Decay speeds up and makes oxygen drop more. People also feel it. Coastal villages that fished for ages using tidal patterns lose their cycle, shellfish beds fade. The still shore may look calmer, but harbors stop flushing themselves, without the sweeping of tide sediment piles. Upland channels need constant dredging. The look of coasts also changes. Beaches that once shifted between wide sands and narrow strips now stay stuck in one state. The drama of the tide's return and retreat is gone forever. The soft textures of wet sand and the shine of retreating water are gone. Rock pools stay in place until they dry from evaporation or fill again when storms arrive. The sounds of the shore change too. Without the force of big tides, the waves are smaller and weaker. The crash of surf becomes a gentle and hesitant lap. Some creatures adjust. A few hardy species settle into the new stability. Algae spread in thicker layers across some shores without tides to scrape them away. A few predators take advantage of prey that can no longer hide in shifting waters, but the survivors are few compared to the many that lose their place. Tides were never just a daily show, they were the breath of the planet, pulling water in and out in ways that built coasts, fed life, and kept the oceans alive. That rhythm was ancient. It began when the moon was much closer and the tides far stronger. Through billions of years the moon drifted away. The tides softened but never stopped, now with the moon gone. That long story ends. What remains is a quieter ocean with less change. The edge between land and sea has lost its beat, and with it the countless small dramas of each day, for those who depended on the tides, human or animal. The change is as deep as losing the moon itself. The ocean still moves with winds and storms, but the steady breath that once shaped it has gone silent. The sun has always been our anchor, not only giving light and warmth but holding our calendar, our seasons, and our sense of time. With its gravity gone, the invisible rope that tied Earth to the sun has snapped. We are no longer in orbit, no longer circling our star. Instead we fly straight on the path we had when the pull ended, moving farther from the heat we once relied on. At first the difference is small. The sun still shines above and the days feel familiar, but the perfect balance that kept our climate stable is lost. Without orbit keeping us steady, we drift into the wider solar system. The sun cannot hold us anymore, and slowly the great disk begins to shrink. Earth still spins to give day and night, but seasons lose their meaning. The tilt of our axis remains, but it no longer brings cycles of warmth and cold. Instead the whole world cools as we move away. The change takes weeks and months. Global temperatures fall by fractions at first, but even those fractions matter. In months winters grow harsher. Summers fade sooner. Crops in temperate zones fail to ripen. Frost comes earlier and stays longer. Spring becomes short and chilly. Autumn turns into a doorway to endless cold. Within a year the truth is clear. Seas freeze farther from the poles. Snow lines creep toward the equator. The sun looks smaller now, not the wide disk we knew but more like a bright star, its heat weaker each day. light still reaches us but not strong enough to fuel the water cycle. Clouds thin out as evaporation slows, rain grows rare. The once lively dance of weather systems weakens, the sky grows still and dry, winds fade because they depend on temperature differences, and as the planet cools those differences vanish, storms lose their strength, the earth grows silent, even the oceans slow, currents weaken without solar heat to drive them, the silence stretches into space. Without orbit we drift into places the Earth was never meant to go. The planets continue their dance, Mercury racing, Jupiter circling slowly, but without us. They keep their old paths while Earth follows a lonely trail, sometimes nearer Mars, sometimes farther, but never again part of their company. The cooling grows faster the more we drift. Within years the average temperatures fall well below freezing almost everywhere. The soft textures of wet sand and the shine of retreating water are gone. Rock pools stay in place until they dry from evaporation or fill again when storms arrive. The sounds of the shore change too. Without the force of big tides the waves are smaller and weaker, the crash of surf becomes a gentle and hesitant lap, some creatures adjust, a few hardy species settle into the new stability. Algae spread in thicker layers across some shores without tides to scrape them away, a few predators take advantage of prey that can no longer hide in shifting waters, but the survivors are few compared to the many that lose their place. Tides were never just a daily show, they were the breath of the planet, pulling water in and out in ways that built coasts, fed life, and kept the oceans alive. That rhythm was ancient. It began when the moon was much closer and the tides far stronger. Through billions of years the moon drifted away. The tides softened but never stopped, now with the moon gone. That long story ends. What remains is a quieter ocean with less change. The edge between land and sea has lost its beat, and with it the countless small dramas of each day, for those who depended on the tides, human or animal. The change is as deep as losing the moon itself. The ocean still moves with winds and storms, but the steady breath that once shaped it has gone silent. The sun has always been our anchor, not only giving light and warmth but holding our calendar, our seasons, and our sense of time. With its gravity gone, the invisible rope that tied Earth to the sun has snapped. We are no longer in orbit, no longer circling our star. Instead we fly straight on the path we had when the pull ended, moving farther from the heat we once relied on. At first the difference is small. The sun still shines above and the days feel familiar, but the perfect balance that kept our climate stable is lost. Without orbit keeping us steady, we drift into the wider solar system. The sun cannot hold us anymore, and slowly the great disk begins to shrink. Earth still spins to give day and night, but seasons lose their meaning. The tilt of our axis remains, but it no longer brings cycles of warmth and cold. Instead the whole world cools as we move away. The change takes weeks and months. Global temperatures fall by fractions at first, but even those fractions matter. in months winters grow harsher, summers fade sooner. Crops in temperate zones fail to ripen, frost comes earlier and stays longer, spring becomes short and chilly, autumn turns into a doorway to endless cold. Within a year the truth is clear, seas freeze farther from the poles, snow lines creep toward the equator, the sun looks smaller now, not the wide disk we knew but more like a bright star, its heat weaker each day. Light still reaches us but not strong enough to fuel the water cycle. Clouds thin out as evaporation slows. Rain grows rare. The once lively dance of weather systems weakens. The sky grows still and dry. Winds fade because they depend on temperature differences. And as the planet cools those differences vanish, storms lose their strength, the earth grows silent, even the oceans slow, currents weaken without solar heat to drive them, the silence stretches into space, without orbit we drift into places the earth was never meant to go, the planets continue their dance, Mercury racing, Jupiter circling slowly, but without us. They keep their old paths while Earth follows a lonely trail, sometimes nearer Mars, sometimes farther, but never again part of their company. The cooling grows faster the more we drift. Within years the average temperatures fall well below freezing almost everywhere. Cities fall quiet under layers of snow, farmland lies barren, rivers freeze, oceans turn to plains of ice, the last green places vanish, only a few pockets of life hold on near deep-sea vents and underground shelters. Humanity faces the choice of moving deep beneath the surface or vanishing into the frozen air, the sun now only a dim star in a sky crowded with unfamiliar constellations. Earth drifts farther and farther, carrying the memory of tides, seasons, and warmth. What remains is a silent world, a frozen traveler lost in space, its story of life written in ice, and its heartbeat, once tied to the moon and the sun, gone forever.